To all veterans out there, I would like to say thank you for your service. Heartfelt gratitude. Thank you for what you did for us. Now, I never served in the military, and I'd like to let you know how that came about. I'm 40, and I'm forging my way towards the finish line in the fourth quarter of life, posting videos along the way. Now, in today's video, I'm going to share with you how it came about that I didn't ever serve. Now, that's very personal for me, and I never really shared this with anybody else, but I'm going to share it with you. Now, I grew up in a very pro-military family. My father was an officer, a lieutenant in World War II. Now, he had a heart condition, so he served stateside, but he did serve. I had a brother that was drafted into Vietnam, and he was there for a year. So, very pro-military family. After President Kennedy got assassinated in '63, I spent hours watching the coverage of that and all the military pomp and circumstance, and that just tied right in with how I felt about the military and this country, and I knew that I wanted to have a career in the military. So about halfway through my sophomore year in high school, that's 10th grade, I decided that I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. Now, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't even bother, because I really wasn't a strong candidate. As some of you probably know, to get into one of the service academies, you have to be top-notch. You have to be a straight-A student. You have to have 3 or 4 or 5 varsity sports, and captaincies mean a lot. You have to have a strong Boy Scout experience, probably up to Eagle Scout. You have to have community service projects. You have to be active in your church. So many things that you need that I didn't have, but I had desire, and I just knew I was going to make it. So my parents, again, this was back in the '60s, and there wasn't the internet, and they weren't helpful at this at all. Not that they didn't want to, or they didn't support me, but they didn't know how. So everything then was correspondence by mail. You'd right away, you'd get a package with the academy catalog in it, and the forms you needed to fill out. And again, I had to navigate this all myself, and I really don't know how I did it. I really don't know how I did it. But we didn't have a lot back then. My father, he was a very smart man, officer in World War II, but once he got out of the military, he never, I love him, rest in peace, but he never went to college and became a lawyer or a judge or something like that, which he could have, but he didn't. So we were kind of poor, but this video isn't about my hard scrambled background. I don't like that term. This is about the circumstances that caused me not to serve. So, as I was saying, another thing that they really value when you're going to the academy, you want to get into academy, is if you're in student government, president of the class, or things like that. Now, we just made fun of those people back when I was in high school, but the academies don't make fun of them. So you want to have all the extracurricular activities showing leadership. You want to be an athlete. Captaincies matter. If you were like a scholarship athlete, if other colleges offer you scholarships, if you were that good, that mattered to them. And there was just so many factors that they're looking for. Leadership, they're looking for, participation, student government, extracurricular activity clubs, active in your local church, none of which I really had. Matter of fact, we didn't even go to church then. My grandparents belonged to a church, and we never even went. So one of the things I had to do was I had to get a letter from my pastor. So I didn't know what to do, so I contacted the church, and I talked to the pastor, and he agreed to have me come in, and he did an hour interview with me and wrote me a letter, which sufficed, and yet I felt really embarrassed even to ask. I mean, it was for a good cause and everything, but here I am asking them for a huge favor, and I know how pastors are. They'll bend over backwards to help you, and yet I was asking for a huge favor, and I felt really embarrassed to do it. But he did it, and that fulfilled that requirement. So instead of being a straight A student, I was maybe an A- student. I had a couple, varsity sports, no captaincies or anything like that. I even was a real poor swimmer, which matters. So anyway, there was lots of applications to fill out and things you had to, deadlines you had to meet in order to be considered. So somehow I did this all myself without any help from my parents. May they rest in peace. And I got everything in the mail, got it done, and I had to go up to an Air Force base in our state, and we didn't have a vehicle at the time. Imagine being in the 60s and not having a car. That's how poor we were. So I had to take the bus up there, and that was kind of embarrassing. And yet I looked at it as, yeah, if I can do this, I can be okay in the Air Force. So we went up there, and for the physical, there was a lot of calisthenics, a lot of physical tests done and medical tests. And I imagined myself to be somewhere in the middle of the pack. I don't think I was the best, or I don't think I was the worst. But I did wear glasses, and that's maybe a strike against you if you want to get into the Air Force Academy. So anyway, it turns out that after jumping through all these hoops myself without any help from the parents, I got nominated. Now, to get into the Service Academy, as some of you probably know, you get nominated, and then they seriously look at your application, and then if you're lucky enough they appoint you, then you're actually in. So I did get nominated along with like about 10 other guys from my area. So again, all throughout this time, I had no idea on how weak my application really was. I just had the enthusiasm, the zeal, and I knew I was going to make it. And I was looking forward to starting my new career away from the crushing poverty that we were living, and get a chance to serve my country and travel around and be an officer. And it really, the thought did not occur to me that I wouldn't get in. So then this was like in 1967. So all through 1967 and 1968, my whole life was focused on what the future is going to be in the Air Force Academy. So anyway, somewhere during that continuum, and I'm not exactly sure when now, I got a letter or I got a packet of information that says I wasn't appointed. And that really was terrible for me. I couldn't believe it. It was like an EMP of the mind. Everything shut down, and it was like I was so despondent, I guess is the term. I guess I found out in my senior year, and I didn't even study very much after that. I just let it all go to hell. And then during that period of time, I didn't even apply to any other colleges for any fallback positions. I applied to one other one at the behest of my guidance counselor, and I was late doing that, and so I was late being accepted, and I just said, to heck with it. I'm not even going to bother. Now, when I did get the notification from the Air Force that I didn't make it in the academy, I think there was also in that packet of information an application for the Air Force Academy Prep School. Now, that was like a one-year school that if you enlisted in the Air Force, they would send you to, and you would they'd like bring you up to speed. It was like like it is with they'd bring you up to speed so you qualified, and you could be considered for appointment, but there was no guarantee. Now, I was so hurt and felt so dejected by the initial rejection that I looked at it as suspicious. What, I have to enlist in the Air Force first and there's no guarantee? No way, so I didn't do that. And then this was the late 60s, so my senior year just petered out in high school, no college that I was going to go to, and so we were all looking at the draft back then. Now some of you guys remember the draft. You could actually get drafted. You were living your life, and all of a sudden you got a letter, and away you go. So it was routine back then to have to go for physicals, and then they would call you if they were going to draft you, they'd call you. So during that period of time, when I got out of high school, and I knew that the Vietnam War was raging, and people in the group that I hung around with were going into the military or coming out of the military, it was just a fact of life, much more so than it probably is today. So then some of you probably remember the draft lottery that started. The first one was in 1969, and I think it went until 72 or 3, maybe even to 75, but that's how they decided who got drafted. It was kind of like a lotto game. It was like they did a big thing on TV, and all of us guys were glued to the TV watching. there was these little, I think they were styrofoam balls or something that you tumbled around in a tumbler, and then they'd drop out or they blew around, and then a birthday would come up. And then they had a board, and like if your birthday was July 1st, and that came up July 1st, they'd put you on the board number 1. So it went sequentially throughout the whole 365 days, and whatever your birthday came up, then they'd put you on the board, you'd have a number. So my birthday came up number 103. Now that was not a good number. That meant you were going to get drafted, because what I learned since then was that year, 1969, all the numbers up to 195 were drafted. So at 103 I was going, and I figured out it would be in the spring of 1970, and that's what it turned out to be. But in 1969, after I was rejected from the Air Force Academy, I spent most of that year doing all kinds of dumb anti-life things that a lot of people in the 60s did. And I was playing softball, and I blew out my knee, my left knee. I dislocated kneecap 90 degrees and tore my knee up pretty bad. When I straightened my knee out, it bounced back like a rubber band, and I ripped everything and tore everything. And it was a serious injury. Now back then, we didn't have any money, like I mentioned earlier. We didn't have any medical insurance. We didn't have anything. So my father told me how he hurt his knee once too, and he just worked through it, and it finally broke free, like he said, then he could do pretty good. So I was determined that that's what I'm going to do with my knee. So, but the knee was really bad. I had to walk with a pronounced limp. And during that period of time when we were getting physicals for the draft, it would swell up periodically, and I'd have to get it drained, swell up periodically, I'd have to get it drained. So one of the things they ask you is bring a letter along from your doctor if you have any condition that makes you, ineligible to serve. So I had to do it because it was quite obvious anyway. So at one of my physicals, they looked at it and they called me back for an orthopedic conference. What orthopedic conference was is you came back by yourself and they took an extra look at that knee and tried to determine whether or not you were draftable. So they looked at it and they, I think it was one of the times when I was limping and it was swollen up anyway, so it was quite obvious that it wasn't going to work. So, but they looked at me and they told me that I should go home, get it operated on, because they were going to draft me in 6 months anyway, no matter what. So I said, okay, well, you got me here now, draft me now, you have orthopedic surgeons, fix the knee and rehab it, and then tack 2 years on the back of that, and there you go, and I'm in the military. So they said, we're drafting you in 6 months, and they sent me home. And of course, I never heard from them again, because they can't do that, because if they did that, you would be, if the knee didn't work out, and they probably still wouldn't have stood up to the rigors of basic training. It was just a bad knee. You weren't qualified. So again, I never heard back from them. And by that time, rejected twice, and I was a little bit like, all right, guys, don't bother me anymore, I put it on the line twice, and you wouldn't use me. So, much later, So I went to college for a couple of years. I came out, went to work. I met my first wife, and I had my 4 wonderful kids who became the focus of my life. And so time passes, and all during that period throughout my entire life, every now and then I would have a what-if thought, like, what if I had gone to the Air Force Academy, Would I be a major now? Would I be a lieutenant colonel? I know I wouldn't be flying, but would I be in cybersecurity or, So I would have those thoughts, and then I'd have to stop thinking about those because they kind of made me feel bad. And I always felt less than around people who had served. They'd be telling their stories and stuff like that, and I just have to, I think I'd have to feel, I felt like a little bit embarrassed that I didn't serve. I didn't feel like explaining to them that I tried twice, but they wouldn't take me. It was just uncomfortable for me. Maybe a little bit like women who never have any kids, and they're sitting around talking to other women that are talking about their kids, how wonderful things are, and shared experiences. And maybe the lady that had never had any children, maybe she feels like some kind of way a little bit, or a little bit less than. Well, I had those feelings throughout my life, not crushing feelings, but it was like I was a little embarrassed that I couldn't sit down with the guys and talk to them like I was one of them. You know, maybe like the kid on the playground that never got chose for a team, embarrassing. Or if you were on a basketball team or football team and you never got in a single game your entire career, you know, you just sat the bench, you know, maybe you were on the team, but you sure didn't make a contribution. So that's kind of how I felt down through the years. And, you know, not to the point where it wasn't that devastating, but I always had that pang of being less than when the vets would get together to talk. Or even recently, I see somebody wearing a hat, you know, like Vietnam, 1969 or whatever. And I'd say thank you for your service and stuff like that, but I'd feel a little bit embarrassed and hope they didn't ask me if I was in the military. So anyway, time passes and life goes on. And recently, I was at, you know, we went up to visit family, and I was, you know, basking in my kids and my grandkids, kids are getting near middle age now, the grandkids are growing, and I just felt so grateful for them. I just felt so much love and affection for them, even though I'm not around them as much as I'd like to be. It was like my heart was full. So then, as I was enjoying their company, the grandkids coming over talking to me, things like that, it was almost like God talked to me. Now, it wasn't audible or anything like that, but it was like he said to me, you love those people, Chris? And I said, yes, Lord. I mean, again, none of this was verbal, but it was all like thoughts. And he said, like, I do too, and I wanted them to be born. That's why you didn't go into the military, because I didn't want you to. I wanted them to be born. And it was like I almost said, what? And the thought came to me again. If I had gone in the military, the people that I was just watching and loving and feeling so wonderful that I could just be sitting there with them, it was like God said, well, Chris, they wouldn't have been born. I wanted them to be born. That's why you didn't go in the military. So I know somebody here might comment and say, well, yeah, they never would have been born, but you would have had other kids and you would love them just as much. Well, that's beside the point. These people who I love so much would have never even existed if I had gone in the military. Now, I might have had the easiest job in the world, I don't know, in the military, but the thing is the timeline wouldn't have lined up. I hate to sound like Star Trek, but the timeline wouldn't have lined up when I would have met their mother, and those particular people would have never been born. And it doesn't matter whether other people would have been born or whatever, but the people that mean so much to me would have never drawn breath. And not only me, but God, I felt like he told me, he goes, hey, Chris, I wanted those people, hey, Courtney, I wanted those people to be born, so that's why you didn't go in the military. So right after that, the whole feeling of less than or feeling unimportant, I mean, feeling less than or feeling like the kid that didn't get picked or somebody that didn't pull their own weight, all those feelings went away. And they've been gone forever since. They're banished. Never again am I going to feel less than, because anytime those thoughts try to come back, I look at a picture of my grandkids and I understand. That's why I didn't go into the military. Tried twice, didn't work out, and God let me know why it didn't work out. So once again, thank you for your service. Heartfelt gratitude to any vets that have served or will serve. My grandkids or my kids that mean so much to me. They have the freedom that they have today because of you. Thank you.